Hi folks, welcome to another episode of ERB Explained. Today we are doing my most requested battle ever, which is Thomas Edison versus Nikola Tesla. So before I get started, I want to say I'm going off of verifiable facts and other things that I look at. Because there's been a lot of stuff going around with kind of not quite urban legend, but like folklore surrounding these two. So I'm only going off verifiable stuff. So don't forget to like and subscribe before you watch the video, because you might not like it afterwards. Depending on what camp you're in. Let's go ahead and let's get this started.
Thomas Edison versus Nikola Tesla! We're going to step up! You'll be shocked when I spit and start static. I'll rip your style and add it to my long list of patents.
Okay, so the first thing he says is step up. One of the most famous things that Tesla invented was the step-up transformer, which is super important when it comes to going and taking generated electrical power and transmitting it over long distances. You have to have a step-up generator in order to increase the voltage so it'll last long enough to get there, because it tends to kind of peter out for a bit. That's why when you look at transformers outside on, well, if you still have poles, most electrical transmission is done underground now, but if you still have electrical wires, you'll see transformers every pole, and the reason is because they're to keep the signals, the power generation powerful enough, because it wants to go and peter out. So you use a step-up transformer and use induction to go and to keep the voltage up to keep it going. And then just, I mentioned that he'll sit there and has a long list of patents. Yes, Thomas Edison, I think he's still the record holder for the most patents ever by anyone in American history. I might be wrong on that, but I think he still holds that record. So, and they just use a thing like rip-off. So,
while you were busy digging ditches and burning bridges, I'm pumping out inventions, stacking riches. So go back to your pitch.
Okay, so this is going to be one where I got to stop every couple lines. So he says, digging ditches and burning bridges. So Tesla went and left Edison, General Electric, which is the company that Edison founded, and we'll go into why in a bit. And while he was waiting to get another job, he went and dug ditches for a living. And burning bridges is just the fact that, he sat there and anytime he felt he was wronged, he kind of sat there and just went scorched earth on somebody. So later on in life, he did get to go and be this thing about pigeons. Apparently, he spent like several $1,000s rehabilitating one pigeon. And back in, even today, that's a lot of money. But back then, it was obscene amounts of money to go and sit there and spend several $1,000s on a pigeon, on a flying rat, So
you're a geek, plagued by OCD. You never had sex, but you sure got screwed by me.
Okay, so the OCD thing, that is a modern thing. People think Tesla had OCD because he was very immaculately dressed. He was very dedicated in his note-keeping and such like that. I don't like things where we assume that people have certain, I'm not going to say disorders, because, but people have certain conditions based on looking back on them and not being able to talk to them and actually properly diagnose them. I'm not a fan of that for historical figures, not a fan of that for modern day. Unless someone has actually talked to someone and examined them and given them a full workup, you can't sit there and say someone has some kind of mental issue or whatever. I don't like that. The never had sex part. So Tesla was interesting. Tesla went and he deified women, believed that women were these goddesses walking on the earth, and that he was not worthy of any woman that could possibly want him. He was totally unworthy. So he never sat there and got with any women or anything like that. The whole screwed by me, Edison, we'll get to that later. So
I trust you, Tesla. There's just no putting it gently. I don't alternate my flow. I diss you directly.
Okay, so obviously a reference to alternating current, which Tesla was a champion of, and direct current, which Edison was a champion of. Technically AC1, but we'll get back to that again. There's a lot of things in this first verse that are referenced later on that it becomes more clear later on. So
I I see a universe of infinite energy, but no potential for threat from this enemy.
Okay, so universe of infinite energy, Tesla believed that you could go and just harvest energy. One of his big things was trying to get energy from the earth, which we nowadays know is impossible. You can't go and harvest energy directly from the earth. And when I say that, I don't mean like geothermal. He believed you could basically harvest electricity from the ground. And he says, I don't see any potential for threat because the potential is the differences. It's a voltaic potential between two things that create an electrical current. So
you can call me Tesla, Nikola, impeccably dressed, giving lessons in electrical nemesis. This will be on the test.
Okay, so Tesla was did teach classes for electrical engineering, if I remember correctly. I don't remember where. He was also very much known for always being impeccably dressed. Didn't matter if it was his day off or whatever. If you saw Nikola Tesla, he would be dressed to the nines, just the way he was.
So confess to your thefts and let the whole world know what the Serbian did for the wizard of Menlo.
Okay, so here's the part. All right, I'm going to say this straight up. Edison didn't steal anything from Tesla. It's just the truth. Tesla did a lot of work for Edison. Edison hired Tesla. Tesla worked for him. And Tesla did a lot of inventions that Edison patented. But that's not theft. If you are an engineer or a scientist and you work for a company, then anything that you invent for that company becomes that company's property. That's not theft. That is called working for somebody else. If my boss tells me, I want you to invent a quantum computer, and I invent a quantum computer, that I may be the inventor of that quantum computer, but I don't get the patent. My boss doesn't even get that patent. The company I work for gets that patent. So Tesla did do a ton of stuff for General Electric. He was integral to its success, but they didn't steal anything. They went and they says, hey, I need you to build this, and he did. And when he built it, he didn't file the patent because it wasn't his to file. He built it for the most part, at the behest and on behalf of General Electric. So it was their patents to file. So
history is getting rewritten, and I have read your best invention was a work to steal credit.
Yeah, so we went into the whole steal credit thing and everything like that. And the whole thing is so first of all, Tesla was not celebrated enough for such a long time. He was a brilliant inventor and deserves tons of kudos and admiration that he's only just now getting. The problem is that we've gone overboard in that. It's gotten kind of hagiographic now, so that he is considered some sort of saintly person who we were so lucky to have walk upon the earth. We are very lucky to have brilliant men like Tesla in history and such like that. But it's gotten to the point where it's a little ridiculous about how people put him up on a pedestal. So, I mean, it's just, sorry. Like I said, verifiable facts.
The truth hurts, you're broke and washed up. Don't give a smidgen about your visions if they can't make a buck.
Okay, so there's a couple things here. There's actually a visual reference in here too. So he says the truth hurts, H-E-R-T-Z, and hertz has to do with frequency of electromagnetic waves and such, and has to do with wireless, basically radio waves, and was very important also in other areas of electrical research. And then you see him shocking the dog. So in order to prove that AC was more dangerous than DC, Edison would go around and he would take animals and he would say, hey, here is, 5 volts of DC, zap, and it would squeal or whatever. And here is 5 volts of AC, and electrocute them and fry them. But it was a bit disingenuous because they had different amperages. But the whole thing is that with AC, it's easy to get high amperage with a lower voltage, which is part of the reason it's so good for transmitting electricity, is that you can get high amperage, which is electrical flow, with lower voltages, which is a difference in potential between 2 points. But it still is, if you have 2 of the same voltage, generally, not 100% all the time, but generally AC will be more dangerous. And Edison was very much known for being a very savvy businessman and not wanting people to go off on flights of fancy just for sake of knowledge, which, you know, yeah, does that make him, some people will say that kind of hurts his fact, and I can see that because it's not like the pure pursuit of knowledge, it's pursuit of profit, but, I mean, you can't argue with the results, so.
I conduct business, understood, things you never could, so dope that I even make New Jersey look good.
Tesla was not a businessman. He was not good at business in any form or fashion. He was very good at fundraising, but he wasn't actually good at turning his inventions and ideas into profits. And then just a quick mention that Edison was Edison was headquartered in New Jersey.
I'm on the record, I invented. You got duped there, I said it. Now bet you $50,000 that you'll never forget.
Okay, here's another big contentious thing. The $50,000 bet. Okay, Edison never bet Tesla $50,000. Tesla never said Edison bet him $50,000. Tesla said that a higher up at General Electric went and bet him $50,000. Not Edison. And the whole Edison bet him $50,000 thing came along later as a result of a reporter asking Edison about the $50,000 bet. And Edison saying, well, I think perhaps our Serbian friend didn't understand our American sense of humor, which is basically Edison knocking it off as a joke because he probably didn't actually know very much, if anything, about it at the time. And so he just probably asked the guy, hey, what's going on? And the guy, whoever it was, sat there and says, well, I said it to him as a joke and he took me seriously, and then he quit when he found out it wasn't real. Now, here's the other thing, is that $50,000 back in that day is a lot more than it sounds like today. $50,000 back then is the equivalent of $12 million. So that'd be the equivalent of you working for a small, say, electrical repair company that works just your city, and them saying, hey, I'll give you $12 million to sit there and to invent something for us. You know, and so when you do it and they don't pay you the $12 million, well, the whole company's not worth $12 million. Of course they can't pay you $12 million. And Edison, at the time, General Electric wasn't worth $50,000, so they can't pay him that kind of money. So, anyways.
Get it? Without me, here's a taste of what this battle would be. No lights, no camera, no sound. See?
That's true. Edison invented he invented a lot of things, or I guess you could say he kind of improved upon them, because Edison's inventions became the basis for modern light bulbs, became the basis for modern cameras, and became the basis for modern sound. I mean, people sit there and they kind of try to gloss over this, say, oh, Edison didn't really invent the light bulb. Well, no, he didn't invent the idea of a burning thing that would go and put out light. Those have been around since torches and such, and he didn't even invent putting it inside of a glass enclosure and using electricity. But what he did is that he invented one that would last for years. I don't know if it's still on, but there was one light bulb in a fire station that's been through earthquakes and fires and everything else, and it's been on for over 100 years, and it's one of Edison's light bulbs, one of the originals. So you can't sit there and say that Edison didn't have these huge contributions to mankind in modern life.
Yeah. You fool! You think that you can touch me with this? You couldn't handle my gift.
I think he was making a mention there of Tesla was a bit of a germaphobe, and if I remember correctly, he didn't like people touching him right there, so.
With your greedy little mind, what's inside mine was ahead of its own time. You did not steal from me, you stole me from mankind.
The only thing that was right in that whole thing was the fact that he really was ahead of his time. Tesla was brilliant and totally deserving of so much admiration and respect. But like I said, Edison didn't really steal from him. And the whole steal me from mankind thing, not really, no. Because after Tesla left Edison, he went and continued on to a relatively successful career with George Westinghouse. So.
It's a wireless transmission of truth, and it's a shocking real story of a banker with you.
Okay, wireless transmission of truth. So Tesla went and pioneered a way to wirelessly transmit electricity. And the idea he would have is that you would harvest electricity and then transmit it out so that people would be able to run their electrical stuff without having to do wires, and you wouldn't have to worry about billing people or anything else like that. The problem is that it doesn't work. The problem is energy density. It's the same reason that we have so much issues. You can't replace a large portion of the American electrical grid with solar energy for the same problem. When you get electricity through your wires in your home or your business, it is very dense in power. It has a lot of power packed into a small area. Sunlight, on the other hand, it can make things warm, it can do all sorts of things, but when it comes to actually having energy density, it is very, very, very low. If you wanted to sit there and to replace one nuclear power plant in the United States, you would have to go and take up an area 3 miles by 3 miles in size, which is mind-bogglingly large. If you don't believe me, walk 3 miles in one direction and 3 miles in the other direction, and then realize that you would have walked around the outside of a square of solar panels. And those solar panels are only useful while the sun's up and while it's not raining or cloudy. So, and the maintenance costs. So that's why, and that's the same problem with Tesla's wireless transmission. He was able to transmit energy wirelessly over a short distance, but he couldn't, it wasn't feasible. He could light up a couple of light bulbs from a couple feet away, from, I think it was like maybe 60 feet away, which sounds like a lot, until he realized that the amount of energy he was generating to light up those light bulbs was mind-boggling, super inefficient. So it really just doesn't work. Now, the whole banker and you thing, that's a reference to J.P. Morgan. So J.P. Morgan, a lot of people like to say J.P. Morgan screwed Tesla out of money because he realized that Tesla he wanted energy to be free. Matter of fact, I believe they're gonna, let's finish this real quick.
And if the people knew you stopped me from making power free, they would curse the Con Edison with every utility. Oh!
Okay, so since they're done, they say that how Morgan and Edison stopped him from making power free. So the folklore, I guess you could call it, around it is that Morgan stopped funding Tesla once he realized that Tesla didn't care about making money. He only cared about advancing mankind, which is total and utter crap. Tesla sat there and blew through $150,000 of J.P. Morgan's money and then went and asked for more. And Morgan said, no, I'm not going to give you more because you just blew through what is, in today's equivalent, $36 million. This would be like having $36 million given to you to build a house, and all you end up with is some walls. No roof, no interior walls, maybe a couple doors. You know, I mean, there's no way that you would continue giving that person money. And Morgan said, no, I'm not giving you more money. I gave you $150,000. So the whole thing is that it's supposed to be Tesla versus Edison. And we've got this whole thing in our popular imagination about it being Tesla and Edison versus Tesla, and Edison trying to stop Tesla. Edison didn't care about Tesla. Edison cared about Westinghouse, who Tesla worked for. Once he sat there and that's the only reason there was any conflict from Edison towards Tesla, is simply because Tesla worked for Westinghouse. If Tesla had been out on his own and doing his own thing, Edison wouldn't have cared. He would have just sat there and let him do his own thing because Tesla wasn't a threat. Westinghouse was. Tesla didn't invent AC current. He simply created an induction motor that worked with AC current. Westinghouse had already adopted AC current before Tesla came along. Edison, the whole reason he went and let Tesla play around with AC is that he was such a big believer in DC current. And they were both right. AC current is what comes to your house and provides you power. But everything that you run practically in your house, your computer, your phone charger, your laptop, your television, everything you plug in the wall, for the most part, with a couple of exceptions, runs off of DC current. It has a transformer inside that converts the AC over into a DC signal. So they were both right. AC is great for transmitting electricity, but it really can't do anything once it gets there. DC is great for running stuff. You just can't run it over a very long distance. So, all right. Oh, almost forgot. The curse Con Edison with every utility. Con Edison is a huge, huge utility company based in the New York, New Jersey area. So that's where that joke came from. Whew. I'm going to get a lot of comments on this video. But if you've got an argument against me, if you sit there and say, oh, you're completely wrong about this, if I mess something up, because admittedly, I did a lot of research for this piece, but I didn't go and read everyone's biography and do everything else. I watched a couple documentaries and I did some reading and some articles and such like that. And I saw both sides of the Tesla's a saint and Edison's a saint, and just looked at them both and looked at what I could verify. So if you've got sources that can back up some of this stuff that I've been hearing about, that I sat there and said was wrong, provide them to me in the comments below. Don't forget to like this though, because that's the whole point of this channel, is that, yeah, I'm doing the ERB explained and I'm helping provide a perspective that you probably haven't seen yet, but at the same time, I want to interact with you guys. I want this to be a channel where you can come in and say, hey, you're wrong in this and this and this, because that way me and everyone else that watches this video can learn. So go ahead, leave a comment, like, subscribe so you're notified whenever you upload a new video, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks a lot. Have a good rest of the day.